Strange that the Camille gets prioed in the blue side. It's kind of a big, massive throwback to the good old days of Wild Rift competitive. That was definitely one of the go-to picks up into the Baron lane. But the one that really surprises me is the prio pick here for Severe, even though it was one of the biggest picks in the farm lane, in the Dragon lane as well yesterday. That Severe coming through quite frequently is definitely a meta shift there. Maybe it's to sort of for the movement speed increase, for the great engage as well. So it worked very well for, I believe it was ESB that picked it up once, and they've gone for it again this time around.
Yeah, they're going for the same combo, if I'm not mistaken, as well. The Severe Morgana. So Morgana probably going to be in that mid lane again, like they did yesterday. Really strong, really annoying to deal with as well. You know, the darker bindings can be super annoying. Also, the black shield is going to be very frustrating to deal with when trying to engage onto Severe. But I think, as you mentioned, you know, the kind of shift in terms of the Dragon lane with Severe being picked, you know, with her damage being buffed, I think it was like a month or two ago now, if I'm not mistaken. She's definitely been rising in priority. Again, as you mentioned, with the movement speed, with the ultimate, the late game damage potential of Severe is definitely up there. And then we also have Vi, so a lot of lockdown potential for the side here of Esubacz. Against that Ziggs as well is going to be very annoying to deal with, because that Ziggs is going to have a bit of a difficult time if Vi is going to be able to get onto her.
Yeah, again, Almighty Capybaras doing their homework. They've banned out the Mokai for ESB as it was their support pick for both of the games they played yesterday. And it was a really, I mean, it finished on a 100% win rate for the entire of yesterday, from what we saw anyway, what we spectated. So that's all that matters though. But we see over to the last few bans on the side of ESB. They're going for the marksman bans, because obviously they're thinking that Ziggs is going to go down into the mid lane, but it could potentially just be flexed into the APC role, which we've been seeing him more often than not down in the Dragon lane rather in the mid. But taking out the Lucian, taking out the Zeri, again, two very long range, pokey, mobile marksmen.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, they could just be banning out some marksmen here to kind of force the Ziggs to also play in bot lane. It's like, oh, you kind of don't really have any other choice. You have to play the Ziggs in the bot lane, so that could also be another thing. But we've seen so many rotations throughout the game in terms of who plays in what lane, who plays where, and what champions go into what places. So overall, it's going to mean that, you know, some of the marksmen are going to be pinched down, and some of the marksmen who are really, really good against Severe during the early game, you know, the Lucian, the Zeri, you know, we talk about scaling AD carries, and Severe is up there as one of the best because of her movement speed and her crit damage. Ornn being picked is quite nice. I really like the Brom pick, though, especially against the champions like Vi and Ornn that really want to go in and engage. You could definitely use the shield and Brom's passive to actually help out there.
Yeah, Brom was one of the picks that I put onto my sheet yesterday about being one of the classic meta support picks that we're used to seeing, along with the Rakan, right? And then here is a pick that actually didn't come through at all yesterday. The Ezreal was one of the ones that was banned out more frequently and never actually got picked onto the Rift. So it's really nice to see that Ezreal's coming through a bit more fruitfulness within the Dragon lane in this day 2 of the Wild circuit. But I feel like the Ornn is maybe going to be the, I mean, if the locking in this Renekton here is back onto the point that is going to be the support, because it's kind of like the Mokai in its essence. Obviously, the Nature's Grasp has a much longer area of effect rather than obviously his ultimate, but it still kind of has that same function.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, actually, Almighty Capybaras comp. They've gone for a lot of poke damage. They have the Ezreal, they have the Ziggs. They're going to be standing back and using that for a lot of poke damage. Then you also have the engage of Jarvan and Camille. So if anyone of Jarvan or Camille ultimates and gets into the backline, they can use a follow-up with the Ezreal ultimate, with the Ziggs ultimate as well on top of that, being extremely powerful. But it does look like maybe Ziggs is going to go down in the farm lane, and we maybe see Ezreal mid, unless they're going to do some swapping when the game comes around. We saw a lot of swapping from Aqua yesterday, playing in multiple different roles, so that could also be the case here. But yeah, I mean, Almighty Capybaras comp, you see, you know, in general with poke compositions, you kind of want to wait it out. You kind of want to wait for the enemy team to engage towards you. If they're the one engaging towards you, then you can be the one just sitting back, using your poke and using your damage. If you're the one engaging, sometimes it can be a little bit of a downside, because if you're going in, then it can mean you get a little...
These teams have been completely throwing us off over the past 2 days as well, right? I mean, that Camille support pick definitely caught us off guard yesterday.
It's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, yeah, going into the game, we'll have to see what things are going to be happening. But yeah, overall, it's going to be pretty fun to see how these teams are going to be kind of battling it out, really, in terms of the lanes and everything else. We're seeing there's a bit of a battle already in this top side to see how things are going to be going. But yeah, overall, it's going to be quite fun to see how these teams are going to be matching up. We can see at the moment that both the duo lanes are kind of sitting in the mid lane to make sure that they get that priority in the mid lane. They protect their own jungle as well. As you can see, the Ornn and the Ezreal in the mid lane at the moment, protecting and making sure that they're staying alive.
I mean, the thing here as well that really like shocks me is the amount of people taking Ghost as well. So you've not only got your Flash, you've got Ghost that's been taken a lot more frequently than over the tournaments that we've casted together and actually experienced together. There seems to be a lot more of a go for that disengage and re-engage kind of mechanic, right? So on the Morgana, we don't normally see that Ghost and Flash come through. It seems to be just, hey, I can rush in, lay down the Black Shield if they need it, use it more of it like a utility mid lane, or just use the Flash to get out of there as well.
No, exactly that, yeah. I mean, I think Ghost in general, it's interesting because Exhaust has been nerfed for quite some time now. I still think the Exhaust is pretty good if you're against like a lot of assassins. The difference is that in competitive, you benefit a lot more from kind of these late game summon spells like Ghost to try and reposition and get into decent fights later on. As you can see, Jarvan actually going for a bit of a flank using that Ixtali Scorpion, which is still related to Skarner in some way. It has to be, right? Like, it has to be some way. But going in already, Hextech ultimatum into the Jarvan ultimate. First blood for almighty Capybaras in the Baron lane. Really, really well played. And they're going to get a lot of playthings as well with that Ixtali Scorpion helping out.
Yeah, that baby Skarner setting up that entire play there for both Jarvan and Camille. And it's already looking like a solid start into the Baron lane as well. And already is Ornn being pretty much stuck into the thick of it with that 2v1 between Ezreal and Braum helping out there. It's soon been backed up there with the Severe, trying to get a bit of poke here onto the Ezreal, just trying to keep him away from cracking his passive and getting obviously the faster speeds on his first ability as well.
Yeah, you can see Ezreal actually going for empowerment instead of the Conqueror, so more of an early game rune, trying to get a bit of power early on. Braum, unfortunately, missing the ultimate. Ornn also uses ulti as well, so a lot of ultimates being used, but everything being missed so far, so nothing's actually happening. It's just everyone using their ultis, everyone's in for now, nothing else happening. Ezreal just going back, getting the fruits, and then going back to farm up some more minions. So, bit of a whiff in terms of the ultimates, but overall still a lead for almighty Capybara. You can see over 1,000 gold lead already, which is really big.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this is a team, and as we always say, it's a very familiar org that's been on Wild Rift for quite some time, even within the semi-pro scene. But some of these names aren't quite the same as what we used to see, and obviously like Coldy Q and Zach as well, and all those familiar names that were the used to be the almighty Capybaras. But the name Shin rings a bell. Is that like a familiar player that we've been seeing before, Stu?
I'm not too sure. I mean, it does sound familiar as well, as you said, as Ornn goes in for knockup. Yeah, it's the name that sounds familiar, but to be fair, there's so many new names, there's so many new players that it's so difficult to keep track. And Ezreal going in deep here, right into the back line. Gonna be going a bit too far there, unfortunately, but securing the kill onto the Ornn in the end. And there's also more fights still happening just to secure more kills. So bit of an overextension here, unfortunately, for the side of almighty Capybara, and Esubacz securing 2 kills for themselves. So that's going to help the goal lead ever so slightly.
Yeah, it seemed like a very positive engage for almighty Capybara elites to begin with, but then it was soon a turnaround. Yeah, Suba was just like, hey, you know, we're gonna get something from this, and we're gonna turn it around for a 2-1 trade. They are able to keep the mid T1 as well, which is probably a good thing for them, but they did lose the Baron lane T1, which is gonna put a lot of pressure onto Dafkan on the Renekton in this match. But right now, you can kind of see that gold difference into the Baron lane, even though there's been no kills given over to them, but it's definitely a start one, and there's the knock-up. It is going to be the kill onto the Severe as well, so Nedro actually not playing too well in the Severe this match time around, and there is Petrus going down also, the Vi and the Ornn. That's a 3-0 trade, a nice bit of a revenge for the side of almighty Capybaras from that last overzealous play in the mid lane.
And Ziggs and Brom just survive on 1 HP as well. They're not able to live, and that is a huge lead for Almighty Capybara. You can see Vi trying so hard to kind of counter the engage, get onto the Ziggs, try and do enough damage, but unfortunately wasn't able to. And it looks like Almighty Capybara are going to try and go for both objectives. The Jarvan actually using the Hex Gates, and Ezreal with the snipe in the end. Jarvan goes over the wall, secures the Dragon. So that's both major objectives going over to Almighty Capybara. The Dragon and also the Mimics as well. You can see the little turrets going to be helping out pushing these towers. They already got the first tower of the game in the top lane thanks to that Ixtali Scorpion and also the extra damage that they were able to deal to Renekton. Yeah. Now they get the win in the mid lane fight and they secure the Dragon as well. So full steam ahead here with a 5,000 or nearly 5,000 gold lead here for Mighty Capybara.
Yeah, already looking like a very strong start, like you said there, Stu. 5,000 gold lead. They have the Baron T1. They have the mid lane T1 as well. And Timmings is actually playing this Ezreal to a really good standard as well. Those ultimates coming through, just landing and used correctly. Not kind of just using them as a means to clear the waves, but really just kind of getting Dafkin knocked down and pretty much putting him down because he tries to get away with the dashes that we know Renekton has within his kits, and it's just not enough to escape these Ezreal ultimates. And this is just really showing how very well these players on Almighty Capybara Elite play.
Exactly that. It looks like Esubacz trying to get some plates back, trying to get some opportunities back into the game, but Jarvan is going with no strangers, jumping straight onto the Severe, but good protection in the end though from Esubacz, protecting their AD carry. Jarvan just dies on 1 HP, but look, here comes the Ezreal as well, flanking. The Ziggs ultimate goes in, but the Ezreal is just flashing in, using the arcane shift in as well, going into melee range, maybe a little bit too far, but going to be trading back. This is an absolute fiesta in the top side. Morgana ultimate actually gets stopped in the end. Camille trying to chase down, lands a slow onto the Ornn, but isn't able to catch up. 3 for 2 trade overall. Again, Ace is the one in front.
I think Esubacz just needs to make sure they can use that Cold and Meek to actually deter the Ezreal from these fights, right? Because that's really where they shined in that top Baron lane fight there, even though they didn't come out much on top within the whole thing, but it still was able to knock down the Jarvan in the early part, able to take down the Ezreal as well. So I feel like it was kind of just like, that's what they need to do going forward, is making sure they know how to mobilize Dafkin on the Renekton.
It'll be really hard here for Esubacz to try and come back in this game. We're looking at the gold differences near the bottom as well. 1,000 gold lead in the jungle, 2,000 gold lead in the top lane. Nearly 2,000 gold lead in the bot lane, in the mid lane as well. The only lane that they're ahead again is that Severe. Nedro having an incredible job here. It has been dying a few times, but overall still being able to secure the kills, and some of the only kills for Esubacz. And you can see at the moment Esubacz trying to funnel all their gold onto the Severe, the towers and everything else. But as soon as that Ziggs ultimate comes up, they jump straight onto the Severe, but the stasis gets bought and he survives for just a little bit, but is able to die anyway. Jarvan escapes on 1 HP. Ziggs is the one flashing in, the bombs come on through, and that is also Morgana going down. The killing spree for Camille. They're going to try and get some more here. The Brom passive is going to be procced. The Ezreal arcane shift over the wall. A double kill for Camille. And that's going to be another tier 2 tower going over to Almighty Capybara.
Yeah, Han on this Camille is going nuts, right? I mean, 4-0-5. He's now into the thick of it in the Baron lane, taking the T2 right now with this ease. And we were saying there just that obviously Nedro was able to actually do pretty nicely with those 3 kills as well. He wasn't having the greatest early game, but was able to get picked off, right? And I think this is all thanks to Shin. He's able to get the Cataclysm in there, just lock it down completely. And there's only so much that status can really do for you, and so much time that it can buy for you. And I think with all the lockdown potential on the side of Almighty Capybara Elite, I just don't think it's enough time for ESB.
No, I mean, every single time that the Severe's flashes down, like, you can see the Jarvan going in straight away. Now the flash is back up though, so every time the odd Jarvan is going to try and engage, this time around Severe has the opportunity to try and flash away and try and get more protection for herself, but it's going to be so difficult because there's so much engage. Even if you escape the Jarvan ultimate, you got Camille afterwards, you got the Ziggs ulti, the Ezreal ulti. It's such a difficult game for a marksman like Severe, who doesn't have the highest of attack range, has to get in amongst the fights, has to make sure that she's hitting the boomerangs, and even Ezreal ultimate, you can see doing half HP damage already at this stage of the game. They're doing crazy damage, but Camille jumping in onto the backline, Severe being able to reposition. You can see the effect of Ghost coming in as well, but the flash is still up. Jarvan securing the Drake while this is all happening. There is an absolute chase going on. Renekton's all the way into the backline. Great spell shield by the Severe, blocks the Camille ultimate, but Camille is way too tanky right now. Ezra kills the Renekton on the backline. Camille's trying to go in for more action. Oh, the True Shot Barrage comes in. The Ignite wasn't able to do enough, but instead they're going to just be able to take the inhibitor. Great block there from the Bronze Shield, and that's an inhibitor tower secured for Almighty Capybara.
I feel like Han's backline attack was a lot more effective than Dafkan's, right? So Dafkan was in the complete opposite side there. We saw that Camille was like, hey, I'm taking a 3v1 up into the Baron lane. It's all good. I got the kill. Was able to get Vi out of there as well because of Ezreal being so suppressive with that ultimate. But then Renekton was kind of like, yeah, I tried to do the same thing, but it just wasn't executed that well. And I feel like the main difference between that execution between these two teams, even though it be the same, is the fact that that gold difference is 11k now between Almighty Capybaras and ESB. That is a slippery slope that it looks like ESB aren't gonna get a return from, right? They're down from the inhibitor in the mid lane. They may try and go for the Hail Mary play into the Baron Nashor again, like they did in the series yesterday. But right now, as resources sit, as the Dragon Souls as well, Almighty Capybaras are looking for a clean game one.
Yeah, one more dragon away from that Ice Dragon Soul. Going to be able to get the slows on top of everything else that they were able to deal. They're trying to get a pick here, though, onto the Camille. Going to use the ultimate that is spell shield away by the Severe. But Camille has so much mobility to get over the wall. Vi is trying her best with the flash, but the blast cone gets Camille to safety. And that's the difficulty thing. And that's why Camille is so good in a side lane. Even if you do get caught out, you still have so much mobility and so many ways to escape. Now you can see they're trying to rush on through, but the Baron, meanwhile, has been taken this entire time. They've been completely distracted. Ezreal flashes in with the exhaust. The Brom ultimate misses, but that does not matter. Another kill secure. They can go back to base, take that T-Hex, and try and end this game.
Yeah, the only thing that's gone well for the side of ESB this far is able to actually get that T1 into the Baron lane, right? They haven't been able to much stellar performance or stellar plays, and I feel like this draft really lets them down a little bit because of the Severe. It can be very fatal, but it looks like that ACES have their number with the Jarvan pick. They're just able to pick off the Severe very early on within these team fights. You don't really have that kind of defensive mechanism that Maokai really offers to ESB, so the Ornn doesn't really give that much greatness and substitute for it, and it seemed right here that the tankiness Ornn is just not enough for Ezreal just to not melt down right now. There's that ultimate just doing so much damage onto 3 of ESB, and here is the TX, like you said earlier, Stu, it's going in. Khan's getting the kill as well. Double kill to Hans. It's only 2 members of the side of ESB still alive, and they're at the Nexus. They are still looking for this next minion wave. Probably going to be the closer here, unless Dafkan can actually turn it down.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough. They're just going to focus the Nexus. Everything goes down. Almighty Capybara from Russia take the first game of this series thanks to the insane engage from Shin and Hanin in the end. You know, the Camille Jarvan combo that we saw, that dive into the backline was just so powerful. And a champion like Severe is really good when it gets to scaling. The problem with Severe is, as I mentioned, doesn't have a lot of mobility, only has the movement speed. Hey, movement speed doesn't matter when you're getting locked in by Cataclysm. You're getting locked in by Hextech Ultimatum. The only way to escape that is with your flash, and every time the flash is down, you saw Jarvan and Camille just engaging over and over again. And since you have these huge global poke ultimates with the likes of Ziggs and also Ezreal, it just becomes extremely difficult for Esuba. But a really good game by Almighty Capybara to end this game number 1.
Yeah, speaking of global ultimates, I mean, normally when you get the Camille come through, it's normally paired with the Galio. That synergy we saw yesterday. But even Almighty Capybara Elite was like, hey, we're going to ban this one out. We're actually going to pair it with the Jarvan. And it was actually paired to perfection, just having not only the Hextech Ultimatum, but also the Cataclysm just to shut down Severe. And it was a great shutdown mechanic because, as you can see here, Shin 3-1, Han with a 7-0-8. And then look at the goal difference just in that lane alone, 5k a gold difference between these two Baron laners. And then Timing playing this Ezreal to perfection. Those global ultimates, like you said, just absolutely dealing damage. And he's only just started to slot those 3 items. He has the Manamune, Trinity Force, and Mortal Reminder. If he kept going and going, it would have just been slaughter for the side of ESB.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing Jarvan in the end, as we were mentioning, going for a more tankier build, using that new Hextech Zeke's Convergence. So every single time he uses ultimate, he's going to be able to deal more damage, but he's got that huge, massive AoE slow as well. You got Twin Guard in there for the tankiness, but you still have a bit of damage with the Trinity Force as well. So overall, just an incredible build, incredible game plan as well for Almighty Capybara. And Esubacz kind of was just left in the mud, really, to be fair. They didn't really know what to do. They were behind so early on. It all came down to Shin with that really important lane gank, going into the Baron lane, taking that Extali Scorpion and getting and shutting down the Renekton in the early game. They shut down this Renekton. They take the first tower in the game so